Okay, welcome back. Belt it out, Jennifer. So, before lunch, what we were discovering from Shireen is that when she is, she has a child who's brought into her classroom who is from a different culture, that the criterion that comes up for her is that that child feel comfortable. That's what's important to her. This child feels comfortable. And one of the things I want to point out is that that's not necessarily what you would have expected. You know, since her ability is that the child is able to adopt or adapt to this new culture, you might think, oh, well, the criterion would be something like that what's important is that the child fits in, perhaps, something like that. One of the things you'll find very often is that the criterion can be a bit surprising. It's not what you would have expected. And that's one of the great joys of finding out people's criteria, because often it's surprising in a wonderful way. In other words, it's not what you would expect, and what it really is much more wonderful and affecting than what you would have expected. So, feels comfortable. This is the criterion. This is the name of the criterion. This is the name of, or the label of, the kind of experience that she wants to have, which is, and the kind of experience is given here in the definition, that is, that this child feels safe in my presence and in the presence of other children. And we checked that with some of her other examples. Does that still seem true to you? Mm-hmm. Great. All right. Now, we know what's important to her. We know what that is in terms of a kind or type of experience. One more thing that is important for us to find out is, how does she know when it's there? What's her evidence that the child is feeling comfortable? That is, what's the evidence that this child is feeling safe in her presence or feeling safe in the presence of other children? How does she know that? We want to know that so that we know what to look for, what to respond to, what counts when it comes to the child being comfortable. So, going back to Carl? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Carl. Going back to Carl, mm-hmm. The little boy was crying. Yeah. You want him to feel comfortable, to feel mm-hmm. safe in your presence. Mm-hmm. What did you see, hear, or feel that let you know that he was comfortable?
He stopped crying.
He stopped crying. Mm-hmm. All right. Gesundheit. And once again. All right, stopped crying. Now, you notice I'm not jumping to put that in a box. Why am I not jumping to put that in the evidence box? Well, I suspect there will be. It doesn't seem, when I try that on, I step into the situation, I don't imagine that no matter what's going on, if the child has stopped crying, they're comfortable. In fact, I know that's not the case because we've got two other examples. So, I know this is one example of the kind of evidence that counts for her. So now let's go to those other examples and see if we can pull out the pattern here. So the other Danish boy, the one mm-hmm. who was angry, mm-hmm. When he came in, now I know you had him throwing things around. Yeah. Would you say he felt safe in your presence, that he felt comfortable?
Not exactly comfortable.
Did he later? Eventually, I should say.
Eventually, yes.
Right. Good. Now,
did he what? Sorry?
Eventually he did.
What?
Felt comfortable in her presence. So, felt safe in her presence, excuse me. Now, as we heard from these examples, it's not necessarily the case that the child walks in the door, Shireen does her interaction thing, and boom, the kid goes, well, I'm adapted to the new culture. Cool. Why did that take you so long? Right? That this is something that happens over time, and that time, I don't know what the kind of the limits are. I suppose it could be anywhere from a minute to a year. I don't know, whatever it is. It takes whatever time it takes for that child. But during that whole period when she is relating to or interacting with that child, one of the things we know is that she's holding as what's important is that this child feel comfortable, that is, feel safe in her presence, in the presence of other children. And the things that she was doing with this child who was angry and allowed him to throw these blocks around, that was moving him towards this. At that point, this hadn't been satisfied. True? Mm-hmm. And so it took time. I don't know if it was the minute after that or the next week or when it was. So at that point, there came a time when you would say, okay, he does feel safe in my presence, and safe in the presence of the other children. How did you know that? What is it that you saw, heard, or felt that let you know that?
He started observing what other children were doing.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. So he's observing others.
Yeah.
And that was evidence. How was that evidence?
Because after a while, he would, for example, take a pencil and a piece of paper and try and do what the others were doing without any information apart from what he could see.
Okay, so he was doing what the others were doing. He was doing, it wasn't just that he was observing them.
Observing and then...
And doing what they were doing. Doing what others were doing. All right? Now if we go to the little Korean girl who wouldn't speak, she feels safe in your presence at the point where you got her to smile.
Yeah.
And how did you know that? What was it that let you know that she was?
She was smiling, and also she started touching my things. So touching my book or touching my pencils. Touching my things. And how did you know when she was felt safe in the presence of the other children? She started to communicate to other children.
But she was alone with my...
No, this is later. Remember, this is, depends on what the ability is. There are some abilities that, they take place in a moment, in the moment. There are other abilities that take place over time, And it's, that she's going to be holding this criterion in relation to this child through time. Other criteria will come up in the meantime, of course, but through time she will be holding this criterion until it's satisfied or fulfilled. And if we go back now to the Danish boy who was crying, Carl. So he stopped crying, and that indicate to you that he felt safe in your presence?
He also accepted a tissue to blow his nose and wipe his tears.
He accepted a tissue. I want to leave out the blowing the nose thing.
Okay.
Okay. Got to keep it clean for the recording. Yeah. And how did you? And what did you see, hear, or feel that let you know that he was felt safe in the presence of other children?
Actually, what he did is when he took the tissue, he looked around. And I was wondering whether he was actually going to use it or not, because he looked around, then he looked at me, and he used the tissue.
He looked around. And so what about that indicated to you that he felt safe in the presence
Because
of other children?
beforehand, he was looking, I think also the colour of his skin, he was red. And the colour of his skin changed
Mm-hmm.
after he'd looked around and had a thought, thinking, okay, now I can use the tissue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he looked around, except that he looked around. All right. Okay. Now, so for us all now, we've got 3 examples of the kinds of responses that served as evidence for her. Is there some way that we can capture what in general serves as evidence for Shireen that a child is feeling safe in her presence and in the presence of other children? So we don't want to write down all these incidents. We could end up with thousands of them. We would end up with thousands of them. But if we were then to pull out the pattern, what seems to be the pattern? Does any pattern strike you?
They changed their behavior.
They changed their behavior.
Did something.
In what way?
Whatever that was they were doing, they quit doing.
Okay,
They
so
started something else.
all right.
And then with the children, they became more aware of the environment. They weren't as closed in.
Okay, so they weren't as closed. They became more aware of their environment. So let me get some of these down here because my memory is like terrible. Okay, so I'll be bold and write in the box at this point. Changed their, I'm going to say current behavior. And they became more bold. You said they.
More aware of their environment.
And
They're the kids.
okay.
They were, yeah. More
So
willing
they.
to be outward focused, I guess.
Okay. How would you put that?
There's some connecting with outside of themselves going on here, it seems like. Connecting behaviors of some kind.
Paying attention to the other children.
Yes, it's an awareness that they're not on their own. There are other children around.
Well, it sounds like almost when they start interacting with their environment.
Mm.
Right. They took action, didn't they?
Yeah.
Rather than, there's awareness and an action, I think.
So it took action. Okay. So.
But I think the external is important because I think they were very internally focused before, crying and being inside of themselves. And you said the young Korean girl didn't talk. It seems like the awareness shifts from internal to external.
So it's awareness of other children,
Well, but
or
Shalene, of the activities around.
other children.
She said that he noticed that the one little boy, the Carl started touching things. So.
Activities. Okay. Okay. I think we're getting it now. Anything else? Took action. Go ahead.
To me, there's something missing from there, which is related to what I think you were talking about. In some ways, it is a positive behavioral shift, isn't it? I don't know how to describe that. It's a move from the internal to the external. Took action to I'm not sure how we can interact with their environment. Yeah, the kids or the.
Okay, so they took action to interact
Whether it's taking the tissue or
with others.
the environment. The environment. So it may not be people, it might be things. Like she touched the things on her desk.
I got to put others and the environment.
Okay.
Okay. You can change it, but that's okay. Right now,
Yeah, that's better. It's more inclusive.
well, the environment is just things. And I think that this is more than just things. So, all right, now, we've been just doing that as though you don't exist and like you're not here. Forgive me, but get used to it because that's what's going to be happening. So what we were just doing as a group, you would be doing as individual modelers, that is, looking at these examples and saying, okay, what are the patterns here? What can we pull out from these examples that would kind of capture what is true or going on, true about or going on in all of these examples? And so we've got down our suppositions about that. Then that you feed it back to your exemplar, to Shireen. Your exemplar is always the expert. That's the person who knows. Anytime you're in a situation where you're thinking, oh, I know better than this. I know better than my exemplar what's really going on here, She disagrees with me, but I know what's really going on here. You're in trouble as a modeler. You are in trouble as a modeler. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have a different idea. But if you do have a different idea about what's going on in this person's experience, you need to really test it out and check it out with that person. Make it plain to them, give them every opportunity to either discover that, yes, what you're describing does fit their experience, or set you straight. No, that's not my experience at all. So now, come back. Well, look what I came up with. My own widow self. So now I want to ask you, thinking about these, the different examples that you gave of these 3 different children, recognizing that there is both their feeling safe with you and then feeling safe in the presence of other children. What it seems to me, and I want you to correct this, is that what needs to be there is some change in their current behavior, that whatever their ongoing behavior that they obviously don't like and are uncomfortable with changes. And basically what it seems to change to is an awareness of other children, of you, the activities, things that are going on around them, and that they take action to interact with others and the environment. So, what of that doesn't resonate with you or needs to change, is missing?
It seems to fit. The second Danish boy, it was a bit more complex than that, but for the other 2, that fits.
This is Carl? Oh, the second
the other
one
one's Christian.
Christian.
Okay. So
Okay.
Christian, the one who was angry.
More complicated in what way?
He'd noticed that other children were actually doing some kind of activity, and obviously he wasn't. So he got intrigued and would have a look and then decide he'd do it. And he always had whatever he needed in front of him. After that, he would get frustrated because he was a perfectionist. He didn't quite know exactly what they were doing. He would try and copy. So his anger would come out again. So it reoccurred.
Okay, so there's a quality. It sounds like there might also be a quality to. So he certainly had awareness of what was going on, and he was interacting.
Yes.
However, the quality of the change in his behavior was still not quite what you would say, yes, he feels safe in the presence of these other children. So what's that quality of experience that you are looking for?
It's difficult to put it in a positive way. What I
Put
was...
it in the negative, it's okay.
He was frustrated. So what I was hoping for is a signal which would tell me, okay, come and help me. And it would take him a little while to give that signal.
Mhm.
So literally, he would take my hand and take me over.
Mhm. Okay. So the sense I make out of that is that maybe it actually fits better to say, rather than that they change their current behavior, they stop doing their what do we call it, favorite? Just want to stop
Yeah.
crying. Stop crying, stop being angry, stop being silent. So they need to stop doing that.
Yeah.
In the case of Christian, he was aware, he was interacting, but he hadn't stopped being angry. So he wasn't comfortable yet. Yeah. So I think it's in there, and I think that's you're concerned about putting it in the negative, that he stopped doing this. That makes a lot of sense to me. Because think about it. So try it on. This is what we're going to do for 3 days, folks. So try this on. There you are. You're the teacher. This child's been brought in with, let's say this child is angry. It's Christian. It's important to you that this child feel comfortable, and that means that he feel safe and secure in your presence and the presence of other children. And compare the difference for you in your experience and how it affects you when you make that. Feeling safe in the presence of other children, for instance, means that he stopped doing his unwanted behavior. Compare that to he is interacting nicely or easily with other children. I'm not setting this up well.
In order to do the second, he has to do the first. He has to stop and then to interact.
Here's what I was trying to get at, and I because here was my experience right away. Went, oh, it's about stop doing this unwanted, unpleasant behavior, this behavior that's getting in his own way. And whatever that is, as long as he stopped that, he's progressed towards being comfortable. If we try to nail down what behavior or what change in his behavior it needs to become, that becomes difficult because different kids are different. In other words, they've all got different personalities and needs and so on. So trying to say, well, they should all act nice or be, talk a lot or be affectionate,
Maybe cry.
or whatever it might be, that then you're going to be in a position of trying to mold all these children into behaving in a certain way. If, however, it's just about, whatever is obviously this unpleasant, unwanted behavior has stopped, then that's an indication now that they're comfortable. Because I think, as you even said, this unwanted, unpleasant behavior, I don't know a better way to describe it, this unwanted, unpleasant behavior, it's an acting out or a manifestation of the fact that they don't feel comfortable where they are. And that's just how they do it. As long as if it goes away, then that's an indication, a big indication, that whatever they were having, whatever they were dealing with before, and that came out in that way, is now dissipated. That was a long-winded way to explain what I was after, but that's my thinking. And that's why I think it makes a lot of sense to say this unpleasant, the presenting behavior stopped. What's a better way to say that? How would you say it?
I would use changed. It changed.
Changed.
Yes.
Because it did change. It shifted.
Changed.
Shifted or changed,
Okay,
yeah.
so what do we call it? Presenting behavior, initial behavior, unwanted behavior. unpleasant, negative. I don't know what to say.
Well, it's initial behavior because it is the first
Yeah.
thing.
But it's of a certain, everybody's got initial behavior.
Yeah.
Some might come in and
So
go,
it's his-
wow, this is cool.
I would say his anger shifted.
Right.
It changed from maybe being angry with the whole wide world to being angry because he couldn't quite get what he was doing.
Right, and hers was to be silent, and
Yeah.
and his was to be crying,
Mm-hmm.
and those are all.
Showing pain, uncomfortable pain.
Well, they're kind of isolating behaviors.
That's
there.
what I'm thinking.
Mm.
I'm wondering if, as we get to here, sometimes we may want to go back up. Because I wonder if it's about belonging.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Hang on there, boy. You can wonder about if it's belonging, but she's not.
She's not.
Okay? You don't want to do that.
Okay.
We have never heard any such words out of her mouth. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So, don't do that. That will take you off into a whole nother world. Right now, we want to couch things as much as possible in her language because words matter. Words are not arbitrary. As this is our interchange right now is an example of. We're trying to come. Well, what is the word that works here, or the words that capture this experience? It's not just any words. Every word is attached to experience, and so you cannot take that for granted. Okay. So I'm going to leave it right now, and perhaps we'll get like a brainstorm later on that it's the initial behavior changes. Initial behavior changes. And we all know what that means. All right? So the initial behavior changes. There's an awareness of other children, yourself, and activities. And they take action to interact with others in the environment. Does that seem to fit?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, that's what?
Can I ask just one question?
Yes.
One of the things that I noticed, and it may, here again, be in that part about behaviors, you seem to be very aware of like changes in their body position, changes in the color. Are those would they be
Thank you.
included in behavior?
I'm glad you mentioned that. So Diana's asking about, you'd made a comment before about one of the children going from being red to less red.
To his normal,
Is normal,
whitish color.
in
Yes.
normal whitish color. Right. Is it true that with the little girl that there were also physical changes that you noticed that to you mattered, that to you were indicative of the fact that she was feeling safe?
Yes, so it's the way she would look at me and, as I said, smile. So her facial expression would change.
Well, she smiled.
She
Facial
smiled,
expression
yes,
changed.
but the color, no, she.
Right. So his facial expression, the one who turned his normal color,
His normal Danish color.
is paper white. Yeah.
He was very, very drunk.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with Christian, I would say it was somewhat the same because in his anger he would be bubbling. You could see his face color changed as well.
And it changed to his natural, normal color.
Yes.
And that was true with Carl.
Yes. But not with the Korean little girls, Tammy. Not with Tammy.
So she's looking for indicators of change. As you just kind of sort through some other children, is it very often about their faces? Is this something you see in their faces?
Faces and also breathing.
And these changes facial expression, and you know what I need to invent are these boxes that just like expand as I write into them, and they just get bigger. And facial expression and breathing. And those changes, how would you characterize them? That these, because this is a change in facial expression.
No, it seemed to be more of sort of calming expression, if I can put it that way, sort of soothing expression. From going to, if I take the example of Tammy, so she was different from the others. She was almost like she had no emotions. She would come in and sit and just wait. And she didn't want to show whatever she had. And I discovered afterwards. But at the beginning, she just sat down and waited. So there's no expression whatsoever. And just the fact that she would smile, and I could see also her eyes sort of light up, that was showing me that there was a change. I would say with her it was more difficult in the sense that she didn't shift completely. It would take a while, but that was also because she didn't want to show what was going on.
All right. So, I'm totally fine with that. You are paying attention. You're paying attention to changes, and the kinds of changes you are paying attention to are changes in changes away from their initial behavior, changes in their facial expression and breathing, changes in terms of becoming more aware of other children and what's going on around them, and changes in terms of they're taking action and they're acting to interact with others in the environment. I mean, that's what you're looking for. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to put a period on that for right now, and now we get to make yet another point. So we have been specifying this to a certain extent. When do we stop? Because could we keep going? Yes, we can. We can keep going with anything up here. We can go into awareness. What do you mean by awareness? How do you know when there's awareness there? And what will that generate for us? More description of experience. And could we go into that deeper? Yes, we can. Where's the bottom? When do we hit bottom? Never.
When you're tired?
That's when I hit bottom. But when would she hit bottom in her experience?
Both are
There you go. Well, I suggest you not find out where that bottom is. Because you can spend a lifetime going deeper and deeper into one of these things, and there is no bottom to experience. There is no bottom to experience. What that means is that we need to then have some standard for gathering of information. What shall that standard be? Well, the standard is, when can you take it on and use it? So if this is specified at such a way, at such a level, that you can try it on in your own experience and you can make it work, it could work for you, then that is specified sufficiently. If it's not, if you're going, well, interacting with others in the environment, I don't know what that means. I'm not sure what that means. I need more description, more explanation to know what I'm paying attention to. Then you need to gather that. But if you think you've got enough, then that's the place to stop. You will never exhaust what there is to find out. So the only way to be able to stop is to use your own experience as the judge and the test for that. Now, of course, it may turn out that you were wrong. When you actually go to use this person's belief template, their structure, in using it, you may discover you were wrong. You don't know you thought you knew what interaction was all about, and you don't know what interaction is about. And that means you would need to go back and gather some more information and find out. But there is you can't know that ahead of time for sure. And it's a mistake to think that you're going to get all the information ahead of time. You're not. So go as far as you go, yes, I got that, I can do that in my experience, and that's enough. Then in the actual using of it, you may discover you need more. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay, good. All right.
May I ask a question?
Yes, Diane.
This is really just because I appreciate your experience, like thinking about what it was like for you working with Bandler and Grinder and that team. And
Yeah,
what you managed to design though was not something in the modelings that you presented to us, just things that were comfortable for, or worked for you, but you were able to create models that were universal enough that, you know, they're now in our materials. People who don't have the depth of experience that you did.
well, those models are what are called generic models. So what we're doing here are person-specific models. Okay, they're specific. This is specific to Shireen. Okay, we are going to talk later on about generic models. In a generic model, what you do is you model several people who have the same ability. So we would find, if we were wanting to make a generic model of helping children adapt to new cultures, after modeling Shireen, we would find at least a couple other people who also do that. We would model them in the same way, and then compare all 3 or 4 models and look for the patterns across them. What's the same about all of them?
Okay.
You know, if we discover, well, all of them have that what's important, you know, what their attention is on is that this child feels safe, then we go, oh, that's the generic piece. That works for everybody.
Okay. So
Okay.
you look for a bigger pattern the more you do.
Yeah, that goes across people. So it drops out what are called the idiosyncratic things, and it preserves just those things that go across individuals. And that's how you end up with what's called a generic model that tends to work better for groups of people. Okay? All right, we'll talk more about that tomorrow afternoon or Sunday morning. Not Sunday morning, Friday morning. Sunday morning you'll be talking about something else. All right, I think we need to take a break. Let some air in the room, and then we'll finish off the belief template.